Good morning. This is a very small video, first of all, to check whether we can put such things on the web and expect them to be listened to because perhaps they're interesting, and also to make sure that the technology works for us. It's a very small discussion about the use of statistics in order to support some government policies. I'm of course starting off with the premise that I'm going to look at legal aid. It is an area that is of some concern because statistics seem to be relied upon in order to show that government policy is accurate. I hope that it's going to be clear that there should be a dialogue with government, including a dialogue about the statistics, because the statistics may in fact show that the proposed course is not the best course. The government probably started to misunderstand the situation when it looked at the statistic that a particular barrister had earned £1 million 1 year out of the Legal Services Commission. I believe that that was in respect of criminal legal aid work. What should have been explained was that that one individual was probably subsidising the whole system for a considerable period of time. Those of us who operate in this area realise that you don't earn that sort of money in that sort of period of time. What happens is you take on a very high cost case and it drags on and on and on so that you don't get paid, sometimes for 5 years or even more. It means that in the meantime you have to carry all of your own costs, which may include staff and overheads, and you get very little assistance out of the Legal Services Commission during that time. There was never any indication over exactly what period of time this person did earn this money, and there was no mention of the fact that the Legal Services Commission looks very carefully at the claims for costs and has the power to reduce any claim for costs, sometimes without any obvious reason for the reduction. The problem with that sort of statistic is that the government may have made the same error as members of the public would have made, namely that this is an indication of the way in which criminal legal aid lawyers are overpaid. Nothing could be further from the truth. Again, those of us within the trade realise that we are probably paid about 25% of the rate that we would expect if we were carrying out civil private work, no matter how basic that work, no matter how easy and non-pressured. Criminal legal aid work requires you to work at speed under pressure. The other statistic that the government relied upon, but again it may be a false statistic, is the comparison that the UK taxpayers contribute £34 per head per annum to legal aid, whereas in Germany the figure is £4 per head. This figure does give a very clear indication that legal aid is too expensive in the UK, but the problem with that assumption is it's false. If you look at the overall figures for Germany and compare them to the UK, you may very well find out that the fact of the size of the legal aid budget in Great Britain shows that great savings can be made within the justice system. My figures may be out of date, but I can't see any reason why they shouldn't be current in the sense of giving a good indication of the differences at this time between England and Wales and Germany. I understood that the difference in the number of judges that you will find in Germany and the UK is in the ratio of something like 20 to 1. Now, the more judges you have, the more access the public has to justice. The more time the judges have to deal with individual cases and to make sure that the cases are properly dealt with by them, whether or not lawyers are involved for the parties. If you wanted to achieve the same level of judges in the UK, then on a rough calculation, assuming that 20 to 1 ratio, you are talking about an increase in the wages and pension costs for judges in the order of 2.5 to 3 billion pounds. add to that the additional bureaucracy, building staff, etc., and it's difficult to see how that figure can't rise to as little as 10 billion. I would have thought that a streamlined system would have still have added something like 20 billion to the justice budget. The problem is, therefore, when you start comparing figures, when you rely upon statistics, if you don't ensure that you compare like with like, you get a wrong answer every single time. Rather than rely upon a statistic like the £34 per head as compared to the £4 per head, you really do have to look at the underlying factors that explain why the differences arise in the first place. What you don't want to end up doing is finding yourself in a situation where you believe that by attacking one part of the justice system you could possibly believe that you can reduce costs and at the same time retain the rule of law.